We are back for another episode of Seedsman's Strain Sessions, and we are here to talk about some different things than normal for us, for the four of us actually, I feel, because we're not known for that. Autoflowers. Not just autoflowers, kind of comparing photos and autos, our experiences, and where they are today compared to where they were in the past, because they have come a long way. I will say that. However, there is some caveats I feel like people should know, at least.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, but if it wasn't for a brand like Seedsman, we wouldn't be able to have these kind of conversations, man. Shout out to them for believing in the boys, the mission, coming together, having our conversations, our sessions, and supporting it. Discount code SESSIONS, actually, if you want to be able to save on any of their products on their website. Check it out.
Hell yeah, man. And it's a great conversation. I can really appreciate diving into autos, kind of giving a comparison and or kind of discussing the pros and cons in relation to photos, because, well, there are pros to autos, there's cons to autos, and quite frankly, to see what some of the breeders are doing with autos is pretty amazing. There's a ton of breeders out there that are really strutting their stuff in regards to creating big, bountiful, juicy, potent autos that are really contenders against photos. So even though I am a huge critic of autos, they have a place. And I think that this is going to be a great discussion for the four of us.
First of all, it's not in your garden, right?
It's not here, Bo.
Isn't it have a place? Just not here. I get it. I think, Chris, do you want to maybe break down for those who are new to the game or are confused what we mean by photos and autos, just so they can understand some of the background, I guess, before we get into our opinions and nitty gritty?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we have plenty of beginners that are tuning in for the first time that may not know the difference between photo and auto. So I'll quickly break it down in just a few sentences here. Photoperiod strains, they really rely on light hours to trigger flowering, right? So typically for a flowering light cycle will be 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Some folks will do 11 hours on, 13 hours off. I've even seen 10 hours on, 14 hours off. But that it's really the amount of really the amount of darkness that's going to trigger the flowering. What happens is there's a hormone called florigen that kind of builds up within the plant, and that's what triggers flowering is the dark hours. Autoflowers, on the other hand, they begin to flower automatically no matter what the light cycle is. It's really based on age. Typically between 3 and 5 weeks after sprouting, you'll start to see signs of sex, regardless of the light cycle. So you could be on a 24 hours of straight light, and within 3 to 5 weeks, you'll start to see the plant flowering. It could be on a 12-12 light cycle, a normal flowering light cycle that you would have for photoperiod plants, and it will start to flower based on that age, so 3 to 5 weeks. Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward for the differences between the two.
One thing I've noticed with autos is and I think there is some science behind it, is that taproot. If, once that taproot touches the sides, once it gets to the edge of the pots, it's flipping to flower immediately. I've learned that sadly over time by thinking I could pot up like I would with a photoperiod, where I start with a solo cup and then I work up into larger pots and work it that way. And instead I had plants that were flowering in solo cups because I had no idea, honestly. And they were so small and so pointless, in my opinion. I mean, this was one blunt and it's gone. And for years I said, I'm never touching an auto again. I'm never wasting my time with that. And then I started to learn a little more and I realized, oh, this was user error. But I still didn't find anything that was really tickling the G spot, so to speak. It just wasn't really doing much for me. Troy, you grow massive ass plants. You grow, straight up pancakes, shields. Mm-hmm. How would one do that with an auto? Like, has an auto been something that fits into the Scrog school?
Well, so that's a little bit of my experience with the autos is people usually started autos to grow for speed, right? Because you can just keep on getting harvest after harvest. But with scrogging, it's kind of hard because you got to fill a screen to a certain point, and the more stress you apply to an autoflower, the actual sooner that it will start flowering too. So just like what you said, when the roots hit the side of the pot, just like training that auto, if you hardcore train it, which you got to do for a scrog technique, that thing's going to be flowering a little bit quicker than say 5 weeks. It's going to start flowering at 3 weeks or 3.5 because stress does that. So like for photoperiods, like I said, there's a lot more control to your plant. And that's the technique I use. It's all about control, all about tucking, keep on working that screen, fill it right up. Autoflowers are just tough, man, but you can still do it. I've done little scrogs. You only get them like a little pancake, not a big pancake, but you can still get a little pancake out of an autoflower if you scrog it, for sure.
But real quick, shout out to Seedsman for making this show happen. Whether you're looking for legendary strains or something brand new, they've got you covered with one of the deepest seed libraries around, curated from trusted breeders across the globe and even their own genetics themselves. Photoperiods, autos, regulars, they've got it all. You can filter the terp profiles, effects, or just chase the next keeper pheno for your garden. And for our listeners, Seedsman's hooking it up. Use code SESSIONS for your next order and save yourself a little bit of yen. And make sure you check out this month's special over on their website. You'll oftentimes find BOGO deals, free gifts at checkout, and plenty more. Don't sleep on it. Grab something you've never grown before, or maybe get something that you have tried in the past and want to run again. All right, now back to it.
With the right amount of stress too, I've seen I've seen 4x8s filled with autos. Well, I mean, not with autos, with like 2 autos scrogged right out across the tent. It's quite amazing. In fact, it's quite telling what stress will do to an auto. That additional stress of training and whatever, maybe your temperature, is going to prolong that veg period. Now, of course, you don't get to choose when it's going to flip to flower. It'll just prolong the veg period. So it's something to note that stress can go a long way. Also, not to be confused with an autoflower with pre-sex pistils. I know for myself, when I'm growing a photo, the stress that I induce on my plants based on the training that I'm putting in, I'm going to see pre-sex indicators, generally pistils, if they're females, early on. I'm going to see them probably about week 2, week 3 of veg, no joke. And if you weren't familiar with an auto or stress, you might think this photo period is actually starting to transition to flower, but that's not the case. It's just a pre-sex indicator. And the more you stress the plant in veg, you're going to see more of that as you progress through and get closer and closer to flower. So don't confuse pre-sex with autoflowers between autos and photos.
Good point. And yeah, you touched upon how autoflowers these days, they're pretty good. I mean, geez, warp back 20, 25 years ago in the early 2000s, autoflowers really viewed as low yielding, low potency. They were small, unpredictable, genetically unstable. THC levels were like very low, like under 10%. But breeding has gotten so much better over the years. And now some of these autos are right up there with photos. They can even surpass photoperiod strains for really potency and for flavor. So some of these modern autoflowers can test over 25% or even higher THC with really good growth and really good flavor. So I want to point that out. There, past 20, 25 years, there has been a drastic change in autoflower genetics.
I'm going to be devil's avocado and say I have yet to find that one. I've grown multiple. I'm on my 7th, or this is my 8th attempt at autos, and I've been finding some that grow way better. Like the last one I had from Fast Buds, it was Gorilla Cookies Auto. I got 8 Z's off of that, dude. 8 Z's, half a pound off of an autoflower, and I didn't try at all. It just the genetics. They worked this enough that it yields so well. High Again grew it. That thing was massive. Everyone I've ever seen grow that one, massive. But the smoke was bland for me. Didn't really.
Yeah,
I
was just about to ask you that.
Yeah, it was tap water terps. It just didn't do anything for me. But I think I may have just had a kind of lame pheno. There's a lot of people who swear by it, especially when you look at things like Mephisto genetics. You know, I've had 3 Bears OG maybe like 5 years ago now. It wasn't a great grower for me, but again, I was a little more ignorant to growing autos. But man, the flavor was unbelievable. And I think that woke me up to understanding that, okay, just like photos, genetics. You need to have the right genetics. If you don't have the right, ones to start with, you can't expect something better just because it's that category of autos. It doesn't mean anything. That's just the way it grows. It doesn't mean the quality is good or bad. And that's something that took a lot of years for me to realize with trial and error and really trying other people's product. I was like, this is an auto? Like, yeah. It's like, well, okay. And then I stand corrected.
That's fair. Sorry, I was talking and I was on mute. I've had great autos. I really have. I did an auto amnesia haze. I did an auto. I've done a few. I've done quite a few. I've had some good ones. My biggest criticism to autos is just the lack of control. That's it. That's really it, the lack of control, because I've got a garden that works on my pace, my lifestyle, and to have something that just flips automatically to flower without me giving it the touch to turn it into something big and glorious, that's the biggest downside for me. But it's not the only downside. It's not the only downside to autos, in my humble opinion. Cloning, like you're never gonna clone an auto. You can certainly try. However, there's nothing going to stop that from flowering. So I believe it was Tupac that said that autos are where good genetics go to die.
I think it was. I believe it was Doc. RIP.
And so, it's like he was onto something, because I feel like once you find something that you're really excited about, you can't keep it. You can't keep it. And I had a wonderful conversation with Chubbs from, Chubbs Cows. He works close with 420 Fast Buds, who's also paired up with Seedsman. Shout out to the two of them. He is very adamant that, it's not about just finding that one genetic. It's about the adventure. It's about trying to find the next big thing, trying to find what's exciting. And, if you find something, trying to find it again. I thought, okay, it's a great way to look at it.
That's a very glass half full mentality, and I love that. But my biggest issue is the cloning thing, is where I have to continuously hunt again, because I can't guarantee that phenotype will be the same. The flavor won't for sure be the same. And if you clone it, it can potentially start to flower at the age that you clone the plant. So if you clone it and those roots touch the size of the pots, if it's the age that it is when you take the cut, that's the age that it is. It's not going to maintain the autoflower trait to stretch out longer like it's a seed. Now, that may not be an issue for some people. I know, like P, yourself, for years, you just pop new seeds, you just keep going, and that's cool. However, I'm like an old head, and I want to keep the same stuff for 20 years, the same exact flavor forever, and it's predictable. So that's been the downside for me. But looking at it the way that Chubbs does, honestly, that kind of is an exciting grower approach, because it's like, man, we're just going to keep going for something new, and what's the next cool thing we're going to find? It's not about retaining this thing. It's about experiencing the thing. And I think that's actually a good mentality.
Yes, but there is positives too about autos. Like, for example, like they are pretty resilient to like common mold or pests and stuff like that. Like typically they are more resilient than photos. And also, if you have like a small growing space, you can put a lot of autoflowers in that small space. And if you have like access or like limited access to resources like water and stuff, because you're going to be using less nutrients, less water and stuff, because it's an autoflower. It's all less. So it's good for small spaces. Yeah, man, pretty resilient plants too.
Well, and even you Canadian boys, when you deal with your plant counts for recreational, or in Germany, 3 plants flowering, pheno hunting is not really a thing. Getting regular seeds is not really a thing. And photoperiods become a little less attractive, because even propagation, cloning, so we're going to have a mother plant. We're ruining the numbers if you're following the laws. So it's, whatever. But it makes it tough. So that's where I really see an attractive side of things with autoflowers, is you're guaranteed a harvest with all your plants every time. There's no, well, this was a male, or this one didn't pop. It's like, well, all of these are from seed to finish. These are your plants. So I do see an advantage there.
They can be really fast, right? Often going from seed to harvest in 9 to 12 weeks. And so that's one of the arguments for people growing autos, is they can sneak in an extra harvest every year, so especially outdoors as well, when the light cycle doesn't really matter. So I think that's one thing to mention. But that speed comes with loss of control. Like Pigeons had said, you lose control. Once flowering starts, you can't delay or extend that veg period. Photoperiods, on the other hand, you can extend that veg period. You can train for longer. You can have bigger plants. Just continue to veg. If you want a bigger plant, just keep in the veg stage, have it grow, veg, and then flip to flower when you want. But for new growers, autos are kind of, they say, plug and play, really. You put them in your grow space, keep them on that same light cycle, and then you can get to harvest in 9 to 12 weeks. That's rough range, right? I mean, there's some that go longer than that for sure. There's a lot that go longer than that, but on the shorter side, 9 to 12 weeks is roughly what comes out of it.
Well, I think with that too, you brought up a great point with outdoor growing. If you're in a place like, again, where P is in particular, the seasons are so dramatically swinging. The winter is death and the summer is death, it seems. So that little window of good growth, you're going to need something like an autoflower to to get that flowering window. Realistically, you could do a little bit of the initial veg, so to speak, inside and then bring her outside. But those autoflowers, I think essentially where they came from, you know, Siberia area initially, I believe. Siberia. Don't quote me. Pete, you would
Russia?
know. You're the auto guy.
Because Russia,
Yes,
right?
Siberia.
Russia. All right. Ballpark.
Ruderalis seems pretty, I don't know, foreign, the name. So,
But it's like they worked the climate. You know what I'm saying? They adjusted to where they are. So it's like these are things that if you live in an area that's comparable for the seasons, it'd be great to run these for outdoors. You know, it's a lot better for people to be able to guarantee a harvest versus like pulling a plant that's 4 weeks early and it's just shit. I've been there numerous times, unfortunately, in Michigan, where we got frost early. And I'm like, man, my plant's not going to make it. And I've let it go and it ruined all of the bud. And I would have been able to actually harvest successfully with an autoflower. And again, increasing your yields per year by having these autoflowers in can definitely help too, if we're not worried so much about plant count.
I looked it up. I looked it up real quick. Ruderalis was first scientifically described in 1924 from plants collected in southern Siberia, although it grows wild in other areas of Russia. So there we go.
Wow.
That was a dart throw, boys.
That was a dart throw.
A dart throw. I knew it was something like fucking Czechoslovakia or some sort of off-brand.
I was gonna say we have been talking to a lot of people about autos lately. I wouldn't doubt that it's like stuck. Oh, Exterminator's here.
Exterminator.
I think one of the biggest arguments for autos is exactly kind of what you guys said in regards to the speed. You know, you throw it outside. We have a short harvest window up here in Manitoba. The snow does not melt until May, and sometimes, and then we have snow again by October. That is a very short window to have your plants out and ready for harvest. So in a short harvesting season, yeah, an auto works out fantastic, and it's going to work great for you. One of the biggest criticisms that I get is that I believe autos are great for beginners because of all the things we've mentioned. You don't need to worry about light cycle. You don't have to worry about flipping things over from veg to flower. You don't have to worry. It's really a set it and forget it. This way, if you've only got one tent, you don't have two tents, you don't have multiple tents of sorts, you have one tent. That means you have a veg space and a flower space all in one because you're growing an auto. The light cycle doesn't matter. So you can keep a veg space in a flower tent. So it's generally going to cost less. You don't need to invest in more stuff. And the reality is that it is just easier. The biggest thing people say is no pigeons. If you screw up a plant in flower or in veg, it's no good. But the reality is if you screw any plant up in flower or veg, it's a mess up and you've got to figure it out. Any plant that you mess up in flower, auto or photo is going to be detrimental to the end result. Your flowers are going to be impacted. If it messes up in veg, well, unless you know what you're doing anyways, you don't know how to fix a photo anyway. If you're new and you don't know, well, you've already messed it up. It's a mess up anyways. So the reality is plant an auto. It's great for new beginners. It costs less. You need to know less, and it's kind of like a set it and forget it. So a lot of advantages, but I also think autos are great for beginners for those reasons.
See, I'm one of those guys who think the opposite.
So do I. I was just about to say, like, I think the opposite, man, because like I just feel like a new beginner grower should be able to grow a photoperiod and then go through the stages and like learn like CalMag deficiencies and learn nitrogen deficiencies and you can correct them, especially in veg. Like you can correct all those deficiencies, and I've done it lots of times, and I learned so much from doing
on
that.
On a photo.
That's
easy. Yep, correct.
But that's what I'm saying. Like for a beginner, they should do that because like autos are easy, right? Like there is learning. Like they do, the nutrients is a little bit different and harder for some autos. You got to put in like more phosphorus and flour and more of this, and like you got to like tweak things a little bit. It's not just like giver, but like for photo periods, man, I feel like there's a lot of like a lenient way to like recover from stress and things that are breaking or defoliating and like doing all that kind of stuff. And it's I think it's a really good way for a new beginner to learn and get their hands dirty and get their mind working on how to grow a plant. And myself, that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's a smart approach too, because it's like you've got a test dummy that you can really just work on and beat up for a while, and it's going to still be almost just like your learning grounds, and it's more forgivable. You know, I think that's the big difference. Is an autoflower is not as forgivable, just like some would say with hydroponics versus soil. You got more space to mess up. There's more room for error because that bounce back time, like you said, like you'll learn a bunch, but it's like don't freak out because it's not flowering. You can cut the whole top off of this plant and let it continue
Yeah,
to grow and come back. Like it's crazy how resilient a photo
yeah,
period can be, man.
for sure.
Chris, did you want to add to that?
It was pretty much just the same thing. I feel like in the first, one of the two of the biggest beginner mistakes are overwatering and overfeeding. So say, for example, you overwater, overfeed an autoflower in week 2 or 3, right after sprout. Well, if you stunted that plant, a week later or so, it's going to start flowering, right? You're SOL. You're kind of stuck with that stunted plant for the rest of the grow. Now, if you overwater, overfeed a photo period in week 2 or 3, well, you can keep it in the veg stage. You can nurse it back to health, which could take, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on what the issue really is. And then you nurse it back and you can continue to veg to the size you want it and then flip it. So that's the only reason why I think, well, the main reason why I think that autoflowers really aren't the best for beginners is because there's not that forgiving period, which is exactly pretty much what Troy and Rob were saying about it.
My only, again, like the only reason that I stand on this is because, yeah, there is forgiveness in a photo, but as a brand new grower, you don't know how to do the forgiveness anyway. You don't know that you've overwatered. You don't know that you've underwatered. You don't know if you've overfed. If you
But
have
you
a
can learn though. Like you
Sure.
can learn and fix it.
And what if you bought yourself a $30
and save your
tripod?
harvest? Like you learn and fix it and save your harvest instead of your plant just dying and be like, "Fuck, what I do wrong there with the auto? The auto's supposed to be easy." Then the
And your
next time you
genetics
try
dead.
it's a bit too hot. The nutrients you put in, the thing shrivels up. But the photo period, you can kind of just flush it out real quick and put in a little bit lighter nutrients, and it'll bounce back. So you're not going to lose that plant. You're going to learn something.
And I
And like,
and I
I mean?
agree with you. I agree with that. But that is the only advantage for a
Yeah,
beginner. That's it.
yeah, that for
When I
sure.
say that you only need one tent, a beginner doesn't have an overwhelming budget to spend on multiple lights, multiple tents. A beginner doesn't have the money or the wherewithal to dive into what is a CalMag deficiency
But
yet.
they're going to get that with an autoflower though, too, though. Like a beginner's going to get
their
that with an
plant will be
autoflower,
dead.
and they're not going to know what to do at that point,
Oh
too,
no,
right? Like,
that's my point. That's the only advantage that a photo to a beginner that a photo has over an auto. I'll give
Training
that.
wheels.
I'll give that to you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
yeah, yeah.
that's a
Have the
good point.
training wheels, but when like the advantages of it with the one tent, not having to know the time to flip to flower,
Mm-hmm.
those advantages stack up to be enough where, because you can still train an auto, you can still get your hands dirty, you can still do all that.
Yeah,
It's just the advantages of, that's why I think it's a beginner. And that's why I like this show, is that we can dive into this, because there's going to be people that agree with you guys. There's going to be people that agree with us or me. And then there's going to be people that are in between. They're like, you know what? Maybe one of them are right. And I like the fact that we can dive into this.
Or
So
maybe none of
shout
us
out
are.
to Seedsman for giving us the opportunity
Yeah.
to have a conversation.
Big shout out to our friends at Seedsman. They make it easy to find the right genetics for whatever style you're running, whether you're stacking a scrog, hunting flavors, or just looking for something reliable that won't harm on you. They've got that heat and the heritage to back it up. Their site's stacked with filters to help you sort for effects, flowering time, yield, flavor, or whatever you're looking for, just so you're not guessing on what you're getting. And don't forget to check out this month's special, because there's always some amazing deals. Adding discount code SESSIONS and you'll save yourself plenty at checkout. Now, back to the show. Yeah.
for sure.
I think when it comes down to it, the beginner conversation reminds me of a conversation we had on From the Stash. No beginner is going to start with hydroponic. But then that argument of like, well, the easier side is you don't have to worry about any bugs. Your feeding is easier because you know what you got to do. You can see your roots. You know, it's easier to correct root issues because you can attack it right away. We don't have to wait for the soil to work. On the flip side, less forgiveness, a little more finicky, less room for error again. And that the speed sometimes can be an issue for some people versus that slow growth for the new grower with the training wheels. I think now if you see some of these genetics, they grow so easily that it's like those are really auto flowers. This is an automatic growing plant, not ones that just automatically flip to flower. And I understand that's the definition, but these are ones that for dummies almost. You don't need to know how to do much at all. And they're resilient as hell. They can take more or less. They grow really good. They give you the confidence that you're killing it. But again, I think it's detrimental to your gardening career to have some failures and to have those issues. And that's where I do think the argument of the photo is good, because it's like, man, let's see what we can do. We vegged for 8 weeks. We really put this thing through the ringer. We had all sorts of training, knuckled her up, but then all of a sudden we had a pH issue and we corrected it. And we've learned this, this, and this. It's like, you only get that training in the field, so to speak. But it's like, if you want to just good bud and to just smoke, you don't give a shit about any of that. You just want predictability. And I just want to pop this plant and get some flower. I'm tired of paying 500 a Z in Cali, you know? So I get the argument of the easy beginner side, but I think more and more people look at it in the sense of, I guarantee I'm going to get these results. And I don't feel autos are that, because I'm never getting exactly what's described on the page, because I don't pop 30 of them. I pop one at a time, and I've never got the described phenotype ever. So I'm like, is it beginner like? Because it might deter me from even wanting to grow. If I'm like, damn, this isn't fruity at all, and it's called Fruit Loops, or it's like, this isn't lemony and it's lemon skunk. Like, that's the issue that for me, as we're a photo, especially like an F4 of the Chill Out OG, it's kind of predictable at this point. Like, what your description of it, I'm going to get something close to that, because it's stabilized, it's been grown, and I can follow even your vegging style to get the end results. Autos, again, it's just, I could see how they're beginner growers, but I also think that it's not as good for your long-term career as a beginner.
Well, I think another good pro for beginners and really folks that are in smaller spaces is autos are often shorter and bushier, right? And they're good for stealth as well, right? If you're an outdoor and you're trying to keep things small and stealth, the modern autoflowers these days could stack up to that. Now, there are a ton of autoflower growers that are yielding well over a pound per plant. They're putting it in cocoa, auto pots. They have those air domes down in the pot, and they're getting massive, right? But if you're not doing any of that stuff, it could generally stay smaller, right? Now, of course, it depends on genetics, lighting, environment. There are a ton of different things that are going to impact the plant size. But generally speaking, they're often more shorter, bushier, good for small tents. They're good for like balconies. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for kind of a smaller plant overall, that might be a pro for you, is to kind of go with an auto instead of a photo.
Yeah, those good points right there.
Yeah, you know what? And even windowsill growing, they're great to just put up. You know, you put them on the balcony, put them on the windowsill. Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great way to just kind of go incognito, have a plant just growing. And again, I just think it's another idea that not only is this plant resilient, but it's great to be in the hands of anyone, where it's like, whether you're a pro or whether you're a novice or whether you just want to have something growing on the balcony, Autoflower is great. Autoflower is great. It's kind of like I just put it up and kind of let it do its own thing, kind of like a house plant, if you will.
Well, if you live somewhere that's warm year round, that's not deathly cold, like, you can consistently grow these outside too. That's the cool part about autos. You know, if you live where Chris lives, yeah, the humidity may kind of be an issue, but again, some of these genetics are bred for lower humidity. Like, they can deal with these climates better than ever. It's wild to see.
Or if you're like if you're a Scrogger, for example, and your screen doesn't fill up all the way, you can just throw an auto underneath that screen. When you flip to flower, just let it grow into 12-12, it'll catch right up and fill that section of your screen up. Or even if you're not a Scrogger, if you're using a trellis grow and like you have a big section that's missing, just throw an auto under there, right? When you flip to flower, just chuck it in there and let her go. See what happens. They're fun just to play with, really.
Yeah, dude, the fill-ins are nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can do a ton of training with autos, and I think that's a good segue into training autos, and kind of maybe we talk about how we can train autos. I know there's some controversy on whether or not you should be topping autos. I've done in the past, but I've grown autos so many different ways. I did a grow, I think it was 10 years ago now, with autos, and I grew 8 different plants in one tent, and I trained them all different ways. I let a couple grow naturally, 0 training whatsoever. So it was kind of the Christmas tree style, versus 2 plants that I had topped, 1 top only, versus a few plants I did low stress training only. I forget what the other ones I did. Oh, I did like super cropping. So I did a bunch of different training techniques on these plants. And from my experience, just the low stress training yielded me the most. And I got one plant that was a half pound, 8 ounces. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. Where the ones that grew naturally, zero training whatsoever, were 5 to 6 ounces. The ones that were topped were even lower than that, 3 to 4 ounces. Now, that's my experience. I know we're going to get some people in the comments that are like, I top auto and there's no stunt growth, and I still get as much yield as I would if I didn't top it. So that's awesome. But just speaking about my experience for training, I've done a whole bunch of different things. And I think low stress training only was where I got the highest yield off of. So I figured I'd mention that one. What about you guys? Anyone's done any topping on any of the autos or low stress training, super copping, or what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny actually. I remember a day, I think it was pre-2015. You couldn't train an auto. Yeah, you couldn't train an auto. It hasn't been since the late 2000s, 2020s that you were able to train autos and top autos. So it's very interesting. I'm being a little facetious because on the internet you couldn't top autos, you couldn't train autos. Every
But dude, you're
forum,
in a sense, I'm telling you, man, like there's some validity to it. Like they were so fucking finicky. They were so like,
maybe, yeah, I figured it out. Like I was training autos since day one.
yeah, but
Because
dude, I've
people said
topped
you
an auto and
couldn't.
it flowered like 2 days later. And I'm like,
Yeah, but
what
that's
the
anecdotal too, right? Just like mine. Like that's
100%.
anecdotal, right? So it's like
Yeah.
if you had a bad result, I had a good result. It's like, well, I wonder what the medium is, right? The only real negative experience I ever had from an auto was it was a Panama red, similar to that, and popped it, flowered immediately, and it only came out to be an eighth. That was the only
Yeah.
time I had an auto where it was like, oh my god, why did I spend the money on this? Other than that,
Yes.
though, yeah, you can fill out a tent, train a tent. I remember topping autos in 2014, 2015 with decent results, still sprouting up, doing their things. Yeah, it's
Well, I think a lot of that depends on the pot size too. So I was doing again, I was thinking I was treating it just like a photo. So I was like, I'm gonna top it now when it's young. I'm gonna let it split and I'm gonna transplant it here in a few weeks where it gets root bound. No, that was stupid. And it started flowering like immediately. I was like, that it was the right amount of stress to just trigger it. So I think in my case, it was the fact it was a small pot and I was doing the training. If you're in a larger pot, it should still
Yeah.
continue to veg, it should still have more time to go.
So like with autoflowers, yeah, you want to definitely plant them in that final pot always, right? You don't really want to transplant autoflowers that much. And also like with autoflowers, low stress training like LST is actually a good technique to use on them because you just like tying down the branches gently. It's called low stress training. But high stress training, when you're like topping them or super cropping the stems, like that's a little that you're on the edge of putting your plant into flower or even potentially maybe herming it because like they don't love that HST, like high stress training. They really don't. You can do it. There's definitely like what you guys said, like you can top them if you find the right one that's like that wants to go, the right genetics that like are resilient to that, strong, stable. But man, you don't want to be like doing too much high stress training on the autoflowers.
I think that's where my issue was now that I'm thinking back is I was in such a small pot. I was adding more stress to the plant that was already there. The roots were getting stressed, so to speak, flipped into flower. Had I been in my final pot, and because I did top a recent auto and it didn't like expand as large as I would have wanted it to, but it grew back, it totally vegged back. It had the space, it split, it flipped to flower before it really branched out a lot like
Yeah.
it like. But 100%,
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing is a lot of these genetics are being bred out with photos and they're crossing these to get more resilience and more strength and more of these traits that can work more in different climates for different growers for different reasons that they're growing. Because again, man, shout out to Dave Baker. He's a viewer and a grower. They look like photos, man. They're always massive. He doesn't have small autos ever. It doesn't matter what the genetic is, it seems. They're just massive. But he's found his technique. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the thing is if you find what works in your situation for an autoflower and you find the right breeder too, like Seedsman has a variety of different breeders, Mephisto being one of them. People who specialize in autoflowers is a huge thing too, not just people who also provide autoflowers. Because I've had ones where these companies normally have photos and then they put out an auto version of it and it just wasn't it. Versus the people who specialize in autoflowers or fast flowering genetics, they know what they're doing. They're putting out good stuff.
Yeah, you kind of touched on this earlier, and we kind of grazed over it, glazed. That autos, there's no doubt about it. Autos have come a long way from where I, at least even I remember them in regards to flavors, the variety of them, the vigor and the strength of the plants. There, the fact that that you have Mephisto, you mentioned, is one of them. There's Fast Bud, Auto 420 Fast Buds. They're doing their thing too. It's like we've have people that have been working these lines for years now, to the point where they are very resilient. They're very hardy. They are provider or producers, and so yeah, I do believe that there was a time that autos weren't that strong, perhaps is the best way to put it, and maybe training them wasn't as the availability for them wasn't, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. Maybe the topping wasn't something that was as readily available or able to be done back then as it is now, based on the training. So yeah, I could see something. I think there is an argument there that today, but you know what, that's the same with photos though. Photos are nothing today what they were yesteryear, right? We've
I
gone a
agree.
long way. So
I
that's just
agree
the
with,
evolution of weed, man. And
yeah,
autos, I just feel like, are just, if anything, just a couple steps behind photos,
yeah.
only because we haven't been working on them as long.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, man. I feel like you can, like, these days there's autos out there that you can top and you can train, you can do everything to them, and they'll, because like you said, like things are coming up in the world, just like a photo period nowadays. Like I veg for like a month and a couple of weeks. I used to have to veg for like 2 months. Sometimes I used to put like 4 plants under a 5x5 screen, and I would veg for 2 months just to fill that screen with 4 plants. Now I'm putting one plant under a 4x4, and I'm vegging for like a month and a couple of weeks and filling that screen. Like and it's that's just been within the last 5 years this is happening. So I agree with you 100% on that.
I think it's a matter of time before autos just catch up. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I saw you.
I was going to transition to something else, a
Please.
really good thing that I feel like is another controversial topic, which is feeding of autos. I know there's quite a few people who are adamant that you've got to give them a lighter dose. They can't handle as much as photo periods. Now, my personal experience, I have not found that to be true. I have been able to give just as much the same feeding of nutrients for autos that I have for photos, but I've only grown about 2 dozen photos. So, I'm sorry, 2 dozen autos.
He's new to the game.
Hundreds of photos.
He just started.
2 dozen autos or so. And so I don't have a ton of experience growing autos, but of those 2 dozen autos or so, I've been able to feed just as much as I usually do during photos. I'm interested to know, you guys, have you had a similar experience or opposite experience or what?
That transitional period is what tripped me up a couple times. So I started feeding flowering nutrients as soon as I saw the pre-sex pistils versus actually flowering. I was like, oh, we're flipping into flower. We're here. It's ready. And it stretched for another 2.5, 3 weeks. And I noticed that it was just a little lime. It wanted a little more nitrogen. And I cut it back just, I'd say probably a week too early for me. And again, not every genetic does it, but I just noticed it was getting more yellow than it should have. I was like, what the fuck, dude? And the pH was on point. The media was on point. Everything was good. All the other plants were good, but the auto was struggling a little bit. And then I realized how I transitioned just, I think, was wrong. I cut it immediately off, lowered that nitrogen dramatically, and flipped over and increased the potassium and phosphorus. So the plant was just like, what the fuck? I still got more time, brother. But again, it was me misreading the flowering, something that I think, again, you need that experience. You need that trial and error. You need that time to understand that this plant may not be the same as the last plant, or, certain morphology that may trick you to think that it's at this stage in its life. It may not actually be there. It just depends. But yeah, it was just tripping up on that transitional feeding for me.
Yeah, I actually grew a couple autos, not like by mistake. I got the seeds came, they weren't supposed to be autos, but I went all through veg, feeding them the same way I would feed my feminized plants. I had them all around, and all of a sudden they just started flowering, and I was like, holy shit! But they got huge, like through the veg, that they actually worked out really well. But as soon as I went to flower, I kind of got, I got screwed up. Like everything kind of, I was getting like deficiencies, phosphorus deficiencies, CalMag deficiencies. So it really threw me off compared to all of my other plants. Cause I was like, I'm just going to keep on feeding them the same way I'm doing my other plants, or how I would in flower with my other plants. and they definitely acted completely different than the feminized plants in my room. So like, I just kind of lost them in a way. It was kind of difficult for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I personally have never experienced any difference in feeding. I think, again, Rob, you make a good point in regards to it's not so much the amount, it's when to flip, or when not to flip, when to transition to flower nutrients. When is it flowering? Is it just flowering when it starts with the pistils? Is it flowering when you get an abundance of pistils, when you start to see those buds on there? That's kind of a really good question, to be honest with you, because I don't specialize in autos, and quite frank, I don't really know when the right time to transition from the veg regiment or recipe to the flower recipe. And would that be when you first see pistils, or should that be like a week, maybe 2 weeks afterwards?
I don't know.
That's actually
It
really
is
I
a
like
good
organic
question.
soil, baby. It's so nice that the soil tells
Yeah,
the
organic.
plant what it wants, and the plant tells the soil what it wants, and they just kind of
But like
symbiotic
you're right,
relationship.
though.
The big thing I've
That is
noticed
such a
though,
good question.
well, think about photos.
Sure.
Photos flowering is when the day that I flip it to 12/12, and that's just what it is. Period. People always tell me I'm dumb when I say, "Well, I wait until the plant's flowering," and that's when flowering starts. But with autos, we wait until it flowers, and then it's in flower, right?
Yeah. So like, do you like? I was about to say with you guys, do you guys with your photo periods, when you flip to flower, do you like keep giving it veg nutrients for like say a week and a half, or do you guys once you flipped it light cycle, do you start feeding your flower nutrients right away?
I
flower
don't increase
nutrients right away.
the potassium. And I wait to do a PK booster or increase the potassium and phosphorus until like 3 weeks into flower. But otherwise, I'm immediately flower nutrients. But other than this
Wow.
last run, organic soil is what I prefer. So if anything, I'll amend it more. I'll add like an extra scoop of food on top as I'm transitioning to flower. But I don't change my food regimen, so to speak.
When
It's
you look,
only with
like
bottles.
I know you're using Athena, and it's
Yeah.
bottles. The
Yeah.
and I've never used this, but I can say this confidently. The majority of nutrient companies who have been doing this long enough, who have a proprietary line, take into consideration the flip in their regimen. So if you
Yeah.
look, when you look at, typically they go to veg week 4 on the scale, and then they go to
Mm-hmm.
flower week 8. And at
Mm-hmm.
week 4, that's this. If you look at between 4 and 5, those numbers don't actually vary that much. Generally, there's an addition of a new nutrient, which is you're weaning off of your
Yeah, going to your
row,
bloom
and you're going
nutrients.
to your bloom, right, which is then increasing your phosphoruses and so on. But then you start to see in your calcium and magnesium that by week 6 you're starting to draw that back, or even almost even non-existent after that. So nutrient companies will take that transition into consideration already. So as soon as I flip the lights, it's if it's a feed day the next day, boom, it's flower that next
Huh.
day. But to keep in mind too, like when we say flip for an auto, you don't change the light cycle for an auto. You don't change the light cycle from 18 and 16 to 12 and 12. You just leave it at 18 and 16. When we say flip, it's
6.
kind of
18 and
whatever.
6, yeah.
Sorry.
I know you are confusing
He
me.
has
You
more
are
hours
confusing
in the
me.
day.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
No, like
You're
only
mixing
when you say
18
like
and 16
Oh my God, that's
instead of 18 and
okay.
6.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. 18
The
and
herb
6.
is working.
So yeah, it's working. So you retain your light cycle at 18 and 6. We'll put a little asterisk there when I say it, so that there's no confusion.
Well, I think
But
that's
you
the
you don't have to flip it. So it's kind of like a term that we're using for autos that you just don't actually do. The flip is just internally.
that's my point. That's where it's
Yeah.
like in photos, we can measure that. We know exactly what it is. You kind of have to read your plant to know
Yeah.
when you transition. And that's again this
But we
argument
don't
of
flip an
knowing.
auto.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is the argument that Scrogger had of like, man, get the photo so you can get your feet wet. You can learn, you can see deficiencies, you can understand the plant signs. With autos, you may all of a sudden, boom, you're into flower. And again, it'll be okay. It's not going to be an issue if you're given some veg nutrients. But as soon as you're really seeing some buds form, you want to drop that nitrogen down a bit and you want to transition into your flowering regimen. And I think that's where that the weird argument, our bro science thing of 12/12, I flip it, it's flower. As we're outdoor, when my plant's flowering, it's flowering. Autos, when my plant's flowering, it's flowering. You know what I'm saying? But 12/12, that's day 1 of flower. So it's a weird one. If you start with photos, that may be a tough one to grasp that concept as you switch to autos, and vice versa. because instead of reading the plant, now I'm flowering, you control when you're flowering with photos. So it's like you do kind of have to understand what the plant wants when it wants it. And if you don't have any idea what you're doing and autos is your first run, that transitional period may be tough. And that's where I think personally, organic soil will be way more forgiving in that point. Because if anything, you need to add more food to it. It's not what food you're giving as much. And it's not like, oh, well, this is veg soil. You know what I'm saying? If you have a large pot with amended soil, you can literally run it all the way through. I've had it before where I didn't do anything. I ran it all the way through. You have no-till gardens, frequently. People, Scroggers had it running for years. You don't have to add a whole lot to it. You can, some stash blend maybe a tea once a week. But for the most part, that transitional period is done all natural, just like the auto is. It's just really, really nice. But there is autoflower specific nutrients coming out more and more all of a sudden too.
Yeah, for sure. You can buy special autoflower nutrients, which is crazy.
I think it's insane.
And
Yeah.
we're going to have to dive deep into that sometime, get a chemist on for that, because I don't really understand the difference. Why would it be a different kind of nutrient?
I know. Why?
Would it be a schedule that's different? The program? Maybe somebody in the comment section, if you're listening to this, if you tried, let's say, Kronk's auto nutrients, what makes it auto nutrients? That'd be an interesting one. Because NPK is NPK, but I guess the formula may be different. I'm not sure.
I would argue it's the formula. That's what's proprietary, right? It's going to be their recipe.
Or the program of how you apply it, like
the schedule, like the program scheduling.
Insane. Oh, the program on scheduling on when to feed
and how the doses and every, you know what I'm saying? Like a theta.
Nutrients themselves are like arguably should be
pretty similar. And that's the thing is I think the use case is the difference, but I don't know.
Okay, I could get behind that where we were literally just having a conversation of we don't know when an autoflower begins to flower. And if your program tells me when, it's telling me that, okay, well, at week, no matter what are you doing? Are you training? Because at week 4, 5, 6, you're going to need to put this into it. Okay, I could get behind that. I could get behind that. But
that's again simplicity. If you're new and you're starting with autoflowers, it's a little different if you're getting information about photoperiods and we're telling you do X, Y, Z, and we're talking about something that we still have 4 more weeks of veg, and you're actually transitioning into flower and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me, right? So like I'm an experienced grower. I grew 2 autos by mistake. They went flowering real quick on me. I fucking started giving them like flower nutrients, probably burnt them or underfed them or something. Then I couldn't recover because there's no recovery time to the autoflowers. So they just kind of got fucked, right? But if they were photo period, I could have corrected things. I could did my runoff test, which I did with them, did the runoff test and all that stuff, but they're already fucked, man. Once you fuck the auto, you're fucked, especially right in the beginning of flower. Like you can't correct them. So I was like, oh shit, that's why I don't grow autos, man. Like I like my photo periods.
That was my argument, and that was P's argument, like, genetics go to die there. Well, not just because you can't clone them all the time. Sometimes because they literally will go to die and you can't revive them. It's like, this is what you don't have a veg period. You're in flower, brother. Like that's what it is. That plant is not going to grow more after it's wilted and died. It's wilted and dead. It has one life to live. And I think that's
for sure
something that's attractive for breeders, because then it gives them a reason to make something that's strong, hardy, good. Like it's a challenge. You know what I'm saying? And I'm seeing it more and more again, like with Night Owls, another brand puts out really like stuff that I had no idea that these were autos. I had no clue. Seeing the finished plant, trying it out, I was like, holy shit, dude. But it boils down to quality genetics and then also knowing how to grow these quality genetics. For years, I only saw Hyagen growing them. Like they were the only main, like popular people I saw growing them. And they're always so big and so bountiful. I'm like, what the hell? Why aren't mine growing like that? And it's such a thing with genetics, dude. Not all autos are the same. So like some of the things we're mentioning is based on our personal experiences with potentially not as good of genetics. Like I've had some, that Panama Red, like who has a Panama Red auto?
It was not a Panama Red. It was like a red.
Was that red Congolese thing?
No, because I love that. No, it was Chapo knows this way better than I do. He'll be in the comments being like,
well, like red. My first 5 were random Green Crack auto, Pineapple Express auto, GDP auto, and it's like this was somebody just randomly throwing a name on it. I feel because it was nothing like the photo. It grew really bad, wasn't doing well at all. It was only in the last 3 years have I been like, maybe not the flavors that I love, but blown away by what I'm seeing, dude. The growth is sometimes better than photos. More vigorous growth, more aggressive flowering. you know, and being able to finish in that 90-day to 120-day window, it's sometimes more advantageous for us who are consumers, who aren't necessarily like caregivers or commercial growers, where it's like, I don't give a shit, dude. I need to be able to throw 10 more of these in. So my veg space, I'm flowering one plant every 2 months out of my veg space, which is crazy to think about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people underutilize where autos are now versus where they were before. It may not be your primary source of smoke, but it's an additional supplemental piece for us photo growers, at least.
And there is a great place for autos. I'm a naysayer. I've been taught, you know, I like to just speak my opinion about them. But the reality is that
Someone else's garden.
Yeah, it's a great spot for someone else to grow them. No, the reality is that there is a place in the industry for them. As I said, you know, it's going to be great for somebody who's starting out one tent, got an apartment, small space, just need to have a small setup with a single light. You get in there, start growing. The genetics have come so far over the years. The stability and the structure and the vigor of these plants are not what they were yesteryear. They are on another level. And, you know, shout out to guys like Dr. Autoflower. Dr. Autoflower, colleague of ours, he's been doing his thing for a very long time with autos. And it's great to see everyone who puts the time in with autos, because it doesn't matter what you choose, whether it's an auto or a photo or anything in between. I'm not sure how many we claim to say there are.
Fast flowering.
The reality is that you should grow. Growing more is going to unlock opportunities, and it's going to just give you the ability to be the best version of yourself. And whether it's an auto or a photo, do more and have fun.
I like that. That's Pigeon's
I think
bird
there's
talk.
a lot of folks that are wondering, so which one is better? And I think that the answer to that is really subjective. And I think it depends on your goals, really, right? We know autoflowers, they really offer the speed, stealth, really good quality, right? These days, the modern ones, some say they're good for new growers, small spaces, quick turn setups. But on the photo period side of things, they're really going to shine for precision control, breeding, maximum yield, right? That's what really photo periods, if that's what you're looking for, photo periods is really the route you probably want to go. In fact, many growers these days, they're running both side by side. They're trying to take advantage of both the photos, what they offer, autoflowers, what they offer. So really it comes down to personal preference and goal, in my opinion.
Dude, totally well said. I feel that's the thing of us who've been growing long enough and we're content creators and we see all these other grows. I've talked shit about autos numerous times, so has P. And then I see others that we show on our shows, you know, with Scrog School, with From the Stash Uncensored, and I'm like, dude, we just suck then, obviously, because they're killing it. Like, how? But
no,
then
I just like to talk
genetics.
shit. Yeah, no, I just like to talk shit. It's fun, and I think it sparks creativity.
Your shit talking has been valid, though.
Yeah, it's good, but it makes people think, and it makes, you know, we had a great conversation right there. We all disagreed. It was a great conversation, and somewhere somebody's going to find where they land, and it's going to work for them. It's going to work for them.
Agreed.
And who are we to judge? Right?
Agreed.
So a huge shout out to
right or wrong.
Sorry, please. Yeah, huge shout out to Seedsman for giving us the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, dude. I think that's where, if you are looking for some autos, some photos, something that actually can do you right and do you well, Seedsman's got your back, man. Discount code SESSIONS at checkout will save a little bit again for you. And if you guys enjoy these episodes, do me a favor, smash that like button, comment below your best auto that you've grown in the past, and maybe why or why not you grow them. Seedsman Strain Sessions is out. I'm Rob, Northern Scrogger, Mr. Grow It, Pigeon 420. See you guys next time.
Peace out, everybody.